John Carpenter's 1988 sci-fi horror film They Live imagines a world where humanoid aliens have enslaved the masses through the media, and the only hope for society is a small band of rebels and a blue-collar worker named John Nada, played by former pro wrestler Roddy Piper, who all have sunglasses to allow them to see the aliens and their propaganda in its true form. This movie is remembered by the iconic black and white propaganda slogans that John sees when he puts the sunglasses on, such as obey and consume, that, although admittedly cheesy and devoid of subtlety, has certainly influenced public thought and even culture. But who said effective propaganda had to be clever and nuanced? In fact, I would argue that the best propaganda is often deceptively simple, and that is exactly what we will be discussing through the film They Live on this episode of ThoughtTime. First, it is important to distinguish that propaganda is defined by the deliberate and manipulative attempt to influence others to further your own agenda. But even after knowing this, it's still hard to tell what is and isn't propaganda. For example, is this CNN article about Trump saying he should get a third term because they spy on his campaign simply trying to just report on whatever is happening in the world? Or is it just trying to keep the left distracted from bigger news stories by making articles about whatever Donald Trump says that day? Obviously, unlike the movie, propaganda isn't that black and white, and we have to examine everything, even if it seems seemingly innocuous. And after all, propaganda is even more effective when we don't realize it's propaganda. But print and television news medias aren't the only forms of propaganda, as They Live shows us that currency itself can be a form of propaganda. John looks down at the dollars in his hand and realizes it literally is just paper that says, "This is your God." Not only does America's money actually advertise God right on the paper, but the very essence of money has convinced people that it's the new ultimate source of fulfillment and power. In this way, money can be seen as propaganda for the working class, as they have convinced us that money is the path to freedom, even though we're really just augmenting their wealth. But of course, money is important in a capitalist society, as is the means of how people get their food, housing, and healthcare. But of course, the job of capitalists is to get you to redistribute your already meager amount of wealth back to them, and they do so by manipulating our primal fears. Clothing advertisements are never about how you need clothing to stay warm, it's always about a fear of not fitting in or looking cool enough. And so, the advertisements are really just disguising the fact that they're trying to sell conformity. And what makes this kind of propaganda so good is that it is so simple that anyone can understand it, and project their own feelings and interpretations on it subliminally. For example, let's take a look at this Chipotle Food with Integrity ad. It uses what are called weasel words, which are slogans with ambiguous words that are designed to create an impression, but really don't mean anything concrete. Food with integrity may make you think that the ingredients are healthier or sourced locally or prepared safer or something like that, but it really is designed to put good ideas into your mind about them and blind you to the fact that they are just serving you high-calorie burritos that still rely on the slaughter of animals. Not exactly a lot of integrity, if you ask me. Ultimately, even if the intent of advertisements is to sell a product, they still serve to propagate the system and social norms which allows their business to exist, which is how all advertisements are a form of propaganda in a way. And you know, propaganda is so ubiquitous in John's world that it is impossible to discern what is and isn't propaganda, and what is genuine news from news media that is just trying to constantly feed and reinforce beliefs to keep you complacent. In fact, when the rebels interrupt people's regularly scheduled propaganda with a warning that literal aliens are controlling the human race, that warning gets labeled as alarmist propaganda despite it actually being the real news in this case. Propaganda is designed to make you never question the bigger systems in play, and just make you look at topics as they're presented to you at face value. It kind of reminds me of that joke that the best spy in the world is the one you never heard of. In the same way, the best propaganda never even allows you to realize it is propaganda. Propaganda has to go through several layers of abstraction, such as framing topics in a specific way, talking about trivial issues to get you to lean one way or the other, distracting with entertainment or non-issues, etc. Sometimes in an effort to seem unbiased, propaganda will even try to criticize small, irrelevant issues for the very thing it is promoting, so it doesn't seem like it is obviously propaganda. Ultimately, the world John occupies is a world that is designed to maintain the status quo of keeping people constantly distracted and complacent instead of actually achieving any meaningful social change. It's a world where anything and everything has an ulterior motive, and anyone that questions those motives or the larger picture is labeled as insane and becomes a pariah. It's a world that you still must survive in by abiding by the social structures, even if you are aware of their malicious foundations. They Live shows us that propaganda is all around us, and we are all susceptible to be gullible to its claims. Propaganda can be staring at you right in the face, and you may not even know it. But that just leaves me with one question. If John can see propaganda in its true form with the sunglasses, how does he know that the sunglasses wouldn't reveal the agenda of the sunglasses creator? For all he knows, there could be some propaganda still right above his nose. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Thought Time. If you want to keep supporting the show, make sure to subscribe and leave your thoughts down below. Until next time, take care.